For Georgetown Police Department, we kind of term ourselves as the guardians of Georgetown. But with that, we take it very seriously. We approach it very comprehensively, where we want to know our community. We want them to trust us. Working in the schools a majority of my career, and working with children, I've been privy and I've seen what happens when they experience trauma. It was one of my first or second years being based in a school system, and I was working in a middle school, and I heard a commotion in the hallway. I'll never forget this. This was prior to ACEs even being a coined term or hearing about trauma-informed care. And I heard a staff member, and I heard a student, and I could hear that student, and the student was very upset, and I went out to offer assistance. And I ended up standing with that student at the request of the staff member. And I remember the student kept trying to run away. And eventually, because it was such a disruption to the school, I had to take action to take this student into a room. And immediately the student began to fight. And, from a police officer perspective or a patrol perspective, the first thoughts that come to your mind are, terms like resisting arrest and offensive touching, and there was damage done to the office, so now you're looking at criminal mischief, and those are the things that commonly to, especially a police officer, that's what you're looking for. You're an investigator, and when stuff occurs, those are the things that you point out. And those things were going through my mind as well, and then when I sat down with this child, he was probably 13 at the time, and eventually I got him detained, and all of a sudden, as he sit there and he was in handcuffs, for his own safety and everybody else's, his demeanor changed, and he started sobbing uncontrollably. And what would be beyond the norm for me, something compelled me to take the handcuffs off him. And I did. And as soon as I did, and as I began to talk to this young man, what I found out and what he disclosed to me was the night before, Family Services had went into his house and removed him and all his siblings and sent them all to separate foster care homes. And they weren't allowed to have any contact with their siblings. But yet the next morning he was driven to school. And that was really the first time I recognized that he went through an extremely traumatic experience that night before. And he really probably wasn't given, the resources that he personally needed to go through that day. And that's why he wanted to run away. And that helped me make the choice to not make an arrest on that child. I talked to him for a little while longer, and we got him hooked up with our counselors in the school. And from that day, he did great. Every day I'd see him in the hall, we'd fist pump or high five, and he was fine. And that demonstrated to me, that was my personal example that, hey, we have to pay a lot of attention to every incident that we handle. And that's something that we had to learn. And that is kind of a paradigm shift, especially for people that are used to going to a lot of different complaints. But that was a pivotal moment where I personally realized that, hey, I have to give a lot of attention to every incident to see really the catalyst for why it occurred.